I'm Mark Henick. This is So-Called Normal. Hey folks, welcome to So-Called Normal. I'm Mark Henick. Today on the show we have Kalen Allen. Kalen is a member of the talent at the Ellen DeGeneres Show. You probably know him if you've ever watched that show and have seen his spots on there from his absolutely hilarious reaction videos to recipes. If you haven't seen them yet, look them up. I've been watching them nonstop. He's the host of OM Kalen and Saturday. You can find him at the Kalen Allen just about everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere else. So I really enjoyed my conversation with him about life as an influencer, how his life completely changed following the bowl of 7-Up salad. If you look him up or if you listen to when you listen to the interview, you'll understand more. And how he just up and had to move then to Los Angeles and work with Ellen DeGeneres. So I really enjoyed my conversation with him. We recorded it remotely from his place in Los Angeles. So here's my conversation with Kalen Allen on So-Called Normal.
So my name is Kalen Allen. I am currently a talent correspondent at the Ellen DeGeneres Show, but that all started by me making food reaction videos on social media that went viral. And I did my first video on November 15, 2017, and then that first video went viral, and then the videos that I made after that went viral as well. And then just a couple of months later, I was appearing on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, to which she offered me a job, and I've been in LA ever since.
Wow, that's incredible. It's so where were you prior to all this? When you posted this first video?
So I was attending school at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was in my first semester. Yes, in Philadelphia, and I was in my first semester of my senior year.
Okay, and you were studying. I think I saw that you were studying theater at the time.
Yes, I was studying theater and film.
Theater and film. Okay, so you already had an interest in. Were you looking at doing television or stage acting, or what was your interest in theater?
I think my interest was both. I think the original plan was that I was going to move to New York, and I often say this, that the week that I moved to LA, that week I actually had a graduate school audition at Juilliard that I canceled because I was moving to LA. So yes, my first passion was to be an actor, and so I wanted to continue my training in acting, and I was going to move to New York, so that was the original plan. Wow.
So you gave up Juilliard, and then you went pretty much a week later, it sounds like, to the Ellen DeGeneres Show. I mean, that's pretty much skipping, a big portion of the stuff that other people have to go through. Many people don't make it that far at all. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think it was very much taking a risk, and just putting it all out there and not worrying about what the result was going to be.
So can you tell me a bit more about then who you were at that time in your life? I mean, it wasn't even that long ago, 2017. But who were you before you really popped so quickly like that, and then jet off to LA? What had your life been like up to that point?
I think before then, that's a good question. I think for me, before all this happened, I was just a person just trying to figure it all out. And I think I'm still figuring it all out, but there's a different sense of stability now that I didn't necessarily have before, and security. I will say that after moving to LA, I feel like I was forced to find myself very quickly, because I think it's very easy to lose yourself in Hollywood just because you have a lot of people around you that don't know you but tend to want to tell you that they know the best for you. And so I think moving to Hollywood really forced me to find a new sense of self. Yeah.
How easy or not was that in a place like Hollywood, where it seems like there's lots people are trying to construct different versions of their self, or the people that they want to be seen as, but how easy or hard is it to actually build an authentic version of yourself in a place like that?
I think it's not easy at all. I think a lot of time is that when you hear horror stories about Hollywood or how people want you to be a certain version of yourself, is that when you enter into Hollywood with that type of mindset, you start to try and figure out who everybody wants you to be. And I think what I had to do was that I had to realize and understand what I was willing to sacrifice for the thing or for, the perks of Hollywood. I had to make a decision with myself if I was willing to sacrifice my own happiness for that. And what I came to the conclusion of was that I said that if I am not happy with myself, then I cannot make content that is supposed to make other people happy. If I don't, if I start to, compromise and try to make other people happy for their own comfortability, but then I will never be able to sustain a career.
Yeah. I read a wonderful quote that you had in one of your interviews. You've done so many, but you said something to the effect of, I am who I am, and you get to be yourself and to share yourself with the world every day, right? I think that's why you connect so well with audiences, because you are who you are.
Yeah, I never try to play pretend. I think I'm the type of person that doesn't like anything that is not authentic, and I don't really work well in fake and phony kind of environment. So I'm very serious about always staying true to who I am.
Right. And I chuckled a little bit when you said that, because I think when people think of fake environments, they think of Hollywood just by definition.
Yes, they do.
Almost. Right. So tell me more about your videos then, to go back to that. I mean, I've watched a bunch of them now, and I hadn't really before this, but when I started, I couldn't stop. I can't get enough of your reactions to food in particular. So tell me more about this. Why do you do these things?
Well, when I did it just by chance. I did it by just having a feeling that I should make this video about food, and then I put up my phone and did it, and then it just happened to blow up. It was never like an intentional thing, but the reason why I think that they work so well and that people love them is because it's a shared experience. I think nowadays people like to have experiences that are immersive and that aren't just one-dimensional, and because usually in the reactions, the people are actually joining in on me with whatever I'm saying because they are thinking the exact same thing. That makes it more special, even though it's something that is so simple as a 1-minute clip of just somebody in their bed talking about food. I think it kind of plays into escapism a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. That there's nothing scripted or controlled about it. It's just your immediate reaction in the moment.
Right, exactly.
So now, what is it about the unusual, I guess, that's one of the things that I've been thinking about as I was preparing for this conversation, that there's something in even if it's classic recipes or people doing things that you find to be unusual and then reacting to that. What's your attraction to that kind of thing?
I think specifically with food, I think food is probably the only thing in the entire world, aside from music, that everyone shares, right. That everybody has a common relationship with. So when we have food that we are very, used to eating one type of way, whether you add a different type of seasoning or something like that, when we see that start to be changed and modified in a way that we've never seen before, it really shakes us up, Because it's like when you go into a restaurant, usually, you're going to get mac and cheese probably 1 or 3 ways, But when you start adding things that are just absolutely out of the ordinary, then that makes conversation, and that makes you want to talk about it and find out, well, why did they do that? It starts to make you question things and question the way that you do things in life. I think it has a lot to do with how we are scared of change, or even how we, a lot of people don't like to be uncomfortable. I think when we start to change things that are very stable and secure in our lives, we start to want to have discussions about it. And I think that's why people find those food videos to be so entertaining and why we find it so obscene and obscure.
This show is called So-Called Normal, and that's partly based on the idea that, I think we're all striving for this ideal version of what normal means, this social media kind of version that everybody else has this great normal life. Well, it turns out actually nobody's normal. There is no one, standard of having a life, that everybody does it a little bit differently. I can you tell me, and I mean this in the best possible way, were you an unusual child in some ways that you're attracted to this idea of unusualness?
Oh, yes. I think I am the opposite. Even to this day, I'm the opposite of what everyone would expect me to be. I was never the type of person that fell into like peer pressure. Like I never did anything that all my friends would do if I didn't want to do it. I very much was against the status quo at all times. I never wanted to do anything that made me comfortable, and I never wanted to do anything that everybody else was doing. I always wanted to be different. I always wanted to stand out, and I think that's probably why I have an obsession with doing things that are different than the rest.
Yeah. Did that ever make you feel, though, isolated or make it difficult to relate to people if you're always being different, especially as a young person?
Oh, most definitely. I think even to this day, I think even like I have a very small group of friends. I think it affects me in dating. I think it affects me in many different ways of how I just move around the world very differently and look at the world very differently than most people do. I don't get very upset at things. I'm very unbothered because I'm always like, well, who cares? Things that most people get upset about, I'm like, well, I can't change it. I'm a very resilient person. I just have a very different type of outlook on life.
How do you think you learned that, or is it just the way you've always been?
I think it has a lot to do with that. I move around a lot around the world based on how I feel, and I always say if something doesn't make my spirit shine or doesn't make me feel good, then I don't participate in it. And that's how I operate within life. So I think it's based on how I feel. If something makes me feel sad or makes me get into a state of depression or just, unhappiness, then I have no desire to be a part of it. Right.
And is that, are those things that you've felt before? Is that how you know that you don't want to spend time there because you've felt it before, or where did that come from?
I think that comes from growing up and being told that what made me different was what was going to keep me from having like a successful career or being able to have friends or to be, budding in this world. And I feel as though it was because of that adversity and what people would tell me that I couldn't do because of who I was, that I fought against that to make sure that everything that I wanted did come true despite who I was.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings?
No, it's just me. I do have 2 half-brothers, but I grew up as an only child.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't know if there's much science or anything behind birth order stuff, but it seems like, many people, and I think we're all surrounded by the message that we all need to conform and to be, inoffensive and don't stand out and all this stuff, but I don't know, maybe it's an only child thing, or I'm the youngest of 3, and I have a bit of that too, where I feel like you need to stand out, you need to be different, and you said this too in another one of the articles that you were interviewed for, that you need to stand out in order to be successful. You can use your difference, right?
Yes.
So
yes, I always tell people, find what makes you unique.
You've done that very successfully. So what would you tell to, or what would you say to other people who are feeling different and who feel like they need to hide that difference in order to fit in?
I always tell people, find what makes you unique and let that stand out, because that is what's going to propel you to what you want in life. Because I believe that whoever you believe in made you the way that you are, because that's who you're supposed to be. And also I think about when other people tell you when people try to force their insecurities onto you, you have to think about, if you are this way, what do you gain versus what do you lose? And you also have to say, if people have these opinions about you, what does that say about them? Because it's like, okay, so if you did do this, or if you tried to be just like the person next to you, what has that person achieved that you haven't, that you could possibly want out of their life, And if it's nothing, then why would you do that? Look at the results of other people that try and force their own opinions onto you. And at the end of the day, when you go to sleep at night, when you wake up in the morning, there's only one person that is looking back at you in that mirror, and that's yourself. And that's the only person you have to be happy with.
Yeah. Who were your most important role models, do you think, in terms of teaching you that kind of mindset?
I would say my most important role model would be my mother. I think my mother always allowed me to be who I wanted to be. I never felt pressured to have to pretend or try to fit inside a certain mold.
Yeah. And how did your mother react when you all of a sudden gained such popularity and moved off to LA to do these great things?
My mother was very supportive. I didn't even my mother never asked me to ask for permission. I remember I just called her, I said, I'm moving to Los Angeles. And she understood that because she knew that she had given me the tools that I needed to be successful and to be able. I'm a very independent person, have always been. My mother, even though I was the only child, made sure that I was very independent, that I could take care of myself. So she knew that I was going to enter into this Hollywood scene with much discernment and be able to make my own decisions and move about it, very intelligently.
Yeah. What are the biggest differences that you noticed, going from being a college student to heading off to LA and signing a contract with Ellen DeGeneres? That's a pretty radical life change.
I would say personally for my own life, I haven't felt that much of a difference, because a lot of times I just tell people that to me it's just a job, and that's the way that I treat it, as a job. I think one thing that I've noticed is that I've become more, I would probably say, isolated with myself. I tend to be more of a homebody now. I prefer to be at home when I'm not working, just because I think when I'm working, I have to be so on, or when I'm out in public, if I meet fans and stuff like that, then I have to be on as well. So I think I like to conserve my energy a lot more. So I like to be at home with my own type of, silence and, in my own bubble. So I think that's probably the biggest difference that I've noticed.
So as a performer then, I suppose, even if it is an authentic performance, there's still a performance element to it. How do you bring your whole self when you have to be on like that? You're not just doing videos in your bed anymore, or maybe you are, but, to go to the stage and to need to be on, how do you do that?
I very much have to prepare myself. If you've ever seen me, if you ever work with me, and before the cameras roll, usually I'm very quiet and I'm very to myself, and I'm just getting ready. And then as soon as the cameras turn on, I'm just always ready to just jump into it, mainly because I come from a theater background. And I think I always believe that the show must go on. So when the cameras come on, I'm like, okay, let's go. I have a job to do. I have people to entertain. I have people to make happy and make them laugh. And I think that's of the utmost importance to me, is to always do a good job. I always say, people can say whatever they want to say about me, but what you will always be able to say about Kalen is that he got the job done.
Yeah. Have you ever showed up to work or to do, something that is designed to make people laugh and to bring people joy, as you're so good at doing? But have you ever showed up and just really not been feeling it, or been in a bad place, or there's something else going on and you had to flick it on anyway?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I mean, that's very normal for me. There are some days where I'm just not feeling it, and I just have to, usually I'll meditate and I'll calm my nerves so that I can get into a place where I can still perform. And then once I do that, then I probably find a different way to go home and just relax and just chill out and breathe, but I definitely would say that happens. Yeah.
Now, you've heard, I'm sure, like anybody who's in the public eye, you expose yourself in what you're feeling. And if you're being vulnerable, if you're being authentic, then you're exposing your real self. And I think one of the reasons that people don't do that as often as they should is because if people criticize the product you create, they're criticizing the real you. They're not criticizing a character, right? So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the feedback of people commenting on your work, both positive and negative?
So I no longer read the comments anymore. I did at the beginning, and it really started to get to me, mainly because I couldn't understand why people would be so angry over some food videos when it doesn't affect
Right.
anybody. You know, I was just like, it literally does not affect anyone in their livelihoods. I'm not like taking money from people, like, and it's not even making fun of people. You know, it's making fun of the creation, you know, and what that is, you know. But I just couldn't understand that, and it really started to make my heart just feel very dark. And as I said before, I don't do anything that doesn't make me feel good. So I stopped reading the comments and only started to focus on just making good content and releasing it. And if people didn't like it or whatever, that was their problem. As long as I was proud of the work that I was creating, then I was satisfied. I was content with that. So I really had to separate my personal self from the art.
That's a refreshingly healthy approach, because I think so many people they can't break away from the comments in that way, right? They live off of the feedback of others, but that's not always so healthy.
No, it is not.
So what have you learned since moving to Hollywood? I mean, you've been there now for two and a half years or so. I'm sure it must have been a steep learning curve for you there.
Yeah, I think I've learned that you can't say yes to everything. I think I've learned that sometimes you just need to take care of yourself, you know, and do self-care, and sometimes you just need to take a break, and that's healthy. You know, I think I've learned different ways of the business. I think I've learned to figure out what I want in my life, you know, what things bring joy to me that isn't necessarily being creative, or I think I've known when I need to just step away and when I need to breathe. I think I've learned more about myself and who I am and what I'm willing and not willing to do. You know, I think this has been just an ultimate learning curve and just a big period of growth for me.
Yeah. And you've also had the opportunity to work with, many different people, celebrities and power players in the industry and all kinds of people. Yeah. Who have been the ones that have really stood out for you or have really impacted your favorite people that you talked to? I'm sure they're all great, but who are the ones that really stood out for you?
I think my favorites are definitely, Ellen, Michelle Obama, and Oprah. I think because those are that's
a pretty good list.
Indeed, and I think it's because those are the three most famous people in the world, Right. And I think I use them as mentors, and I watch them and I see how they move around like backstage and with other people and how they communicate and how they operate, and it's just like I can figure out how I want to move around the world based off of them, especially because I think they are some of the nicest people that I've ever met and some of the most grounded people. And I think a lot of times there have been times when I met people that weren't so nice. Then usually those are the people that aren't as famous, And so it's me learning that because you have some type of clout or this public figure label, slapped to your name doesn't mean that you have to act or be a certain way, and I think it's the people that have the security within themselves and who they are that are usually the nicest, and I think those three women are some of the most secure people that I've ever met.
So would you say then that who you see is who they actually are? Oh,
absolutely. When people ask me all the time about, who is Ellen, in real life, I say exactly who you see on TV. That's the exact same person. I think that's why another reason why I strive to be as authentic as possible is because I think Ellen is so authentic. It's like she gives it to you who she is, and she doesn't try to compromise and change who she is, for anybody else's pleasure.
Right. So what is it about fame? People like Ellen or Michelle Obama or yourself. What is it about fame that's useful or powerful? Why are you attracted to the idea of fame?
I think it has a lot to do, for me, it's about representation and visibility. There aren't a lot of people that look like me that have the platform that I have, and with that, I think when you have people that have these huge platforms, you are able to influence a lot of people because they trust you. And the whole entire world works off of trust. They're like certain brands that that you'll buy from because you trust that the quality and what they're saying is true. you know? And so I think that's why it's so important for people that have fame to take that responsibility serious and realize the things that you have, that you can change and impact with your voice because people know who you are.
Do you find the platform can be heavy sometimes, being a representative of one or more communities? That's a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of responsibility, and I think there's a lot of juggling the intersectionality of it all. But I think at the end of the day, you have to realize, you have to think about what is it worth, you know, and why that fight is so important to continue, because, you know, at the end of the day, you can do more good than bad, you know, and I think everything's not going to be easy. And of course, you're going to have your own struggles and your own hurdles, and you're going to have people that don't agree with you all the time. But you have to think, what is the price of that, and how is it worth it? You know, and I think most of the times when you are dealing with disenfranchised communities and, you know, people that are oppressed, you understand that it is always worth the struggle and the sacrifices.
Yeah. You said in one of your Instagram posts that for you, fame wasn't about the money or the appearance or anything like that, but that you want to inspire and people and motivate, change lives. You know, how do you think having that kind of platform can do that? How can it change people's lives?
I think it can change lives, because if you just look at me being only 23, you know, and what I've been able to do, especially with someone, because usually, especially in this new age of social media, it's like people get viral and then that's all they care about is just making content. And then, you know, they just want the fame. They just want the perks. They just want to go to the party. That's not how I move about the life. It's like, so I've taken these viral videos and I've built a career out of it. I think that is a teaching moment for any young creator of anybody that says, just because, for instance, also is that I think a lot of people don't take people that are creative or YouTubers seriously. And I think it is proof that no matter how you make it in this world, you can always take that and create something that is bigger and better, you know, and it all depends on the work that you do.
Yeah. Now we've seen, you know, influencers and YouTubers, YouTube stars in particular, like yourself. That's a relatively new phenomenon, right? It hasn't been around all that long, and some people have misused that platform, and I think in some ways have done some harm. I'm thinking of one guy in particular who shot a video of somebody who had died by suicide. You know, something that is not only in poor taste, but actually can be quite harmful for other people impacted by that. So, you know, how do you go by instinct in terms of what you think, in terms of being yourself, what will help people and inspire people and motivate people? Or do you have a way of thinking, you know, maybe this isn't the right time for this or the right way to say this, I guess? How do you edit yourself in that respect, or do you?
I think you have to be very smart, and you also have to remove yourself. And you have to realize that, okay, you may feel this way about this opinion, you may think this way about this, but you have to sit back and think, how will other people, you know, receive it? What do they think about it, you know? And I think that's what you have to keep in mind, is that everybody's not you. Everybody doesn't think like you. You know, and I think there's a responsibility with that, and in the content that you make. I think I do move off my instincts, but I think timing is also important. You have to look at what's in the news. You have to look at what are people thinking about, and you also have to think about what are the consequences. I think I've moved around life. I think my mother always said, before you do anything, always think about what are the consequences. You know, and I think when you have a platform, you have to realize that you have an outreach that not many people can have. You know, there's a lot of people that can go on social media and state their opinions and nobody see it but a couple of people. That's not you, you know? Yeah. And just because you have an opinion doesn't mean that it is the socially acceptable or the right opinion.
Sure, yeah. Now, you said that you don't read the comments, so you filter out the usually toxic garbage anyway. But what about the positive stuff? Do the positive stories of the ways that you have inspired and motivated and changed people, does that make its way to you?
Yes, it does make its way to me, mainly in-person encounters, I would say. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it necessarily, I think it kind of motivates me to keep going. and to keep doing it. But I wouldn't say that it necessarily is like, oh my gosh, you know, like, oh, I'm feeling myself because they like this, that, and the other.
Right,
you know,
right.
I think I take it more as I more so care about the criticism, you know, or what I could do better, and just learning. Like, I'm always like, okay, great, this video had this many views. Now the next one I do, how can I make that better? You know, I'm just always trying to learn and grow from who I was before, you know, so I don't really get caught up or let even the positive stuff sink into me, you know. But I think that may also have to do with race. You know, I feel as though being a black man, I have to work twice as hard. So I never really take time to focus on the positive comments, because it's like, okay, I have to keep working. I don't really have time to focus on that.
Have you encountered barriers regarding your race, you know, where do you think you're treated differently, that people think you can't be as inspiring or as even as successful because of your race? Have you encountered that?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that all the time. I think I remember when I first started food videos, people would be like, oh, he doesn't have any talent. Like, what is he doing? He's just laying in bed, blah, 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 you know, and like, who cares? And then I would always be like, well, there's a lot of other people that don't look like me, that basically do the same thing. They just go around vlogging and stuff like that, but you allow them to have that space. You know, you allow them to win awards and go to award shows and stuff like that. So what makes me any different? Why do I not deserve the same as they do? You know, I think that always plays a factor in it. And I think that's another reason why I had to stop reading the comments, because I told people a lot of times I never understood if people didn't like me because they genuinely didn't like me, or if they didn't like me because I was black, or if they didn't like me because I was gay, or if they didn't like me because all of the above. You know?
Right.
And so I had to remove myself and just trust that, you know, it is what it is. And I had to also learn, and I think this is very important for anybody that wants to be a creator, is that you have to learn that fans are not irreplaceable. You know? What one person doesn't like, I promise you there are 10 other people that will like it. And you just have to trust that you will filter out the bad seeds, and with that, you will get double in people that do like it.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about being gay in the black community? I think, you know, I'm not black. Like I mentioned at the top, I'm a boring white guy. So I don't really have access to that in the same way, but I've heard that there's a lot of stigma in the black community around being gay. Has that been your experience?
I would say to an extent. I think homophobia is in any community, period. I think when you are involved and have a special connection with a specific community, I think it can feel a lot, you know, more increased, just because that is your community and that is where you are around all the time. And I think it's very hard to not be accepted by people that you identify with. So I think it's kind of hard to find your space in the world when you don't feel like you fit in that space. You know, especially when you're black, so you don't fit in with like the white space, and then you're gay, so you don't feel like you fit in with the black space. You know, I think that happens with any marginalized community, no matter what. So I think for me, even though there is homophobia within the African American community, that doesn't stop me from also understanding that there are also other spaces where I wouldn't be welcomed in either. And I think what I strive to do is to continue to be who I am and to still fight for my own, you know, black gay community, but also not isolating myself from the communities that don't accept me, because I think if I start to push away from those communities, that doesn't change the narrative, and that doesn't teach anybody that I am who I am is no different from them. You know, I think I have to continue to try to occupy those spaces so that I become the new norm.
Yeah, those are the communities that need it the most. And certainly homophobia is in every community, I think, not just that one. So when did you always know that you were gay, or was this a coming out process for you over a period of time?
Oh, no, I always knew. But I will say that once I came out publicly, I think I was more so coming out to myself, because even though I knew, I think there were still things and ways that I moved about in the world that would try to, I guess, assimilate myself into, you know, culture and society as a whole. And I think once I came out, there was a sense of relief, because I felt as though everyone already knew. Like I had just told the world. So there was no reason to hide or try to change myself for, anybody else. So I think it was more so coming out to myself to be like, okay, Lynn, you're comfortable in who you are now. This is your time to find out how to love yourself unconditionally, without having to worry about the opinions of anybody else or worrying about your safety in the world,
Yeah. How did your mother react or your family react when you officially came out? You said they all knew anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was never a secret. I tell people all the time is that Kalen was always Kalen. I was always who I was. It was just that the fact that there was no label put on it, and that was the only difference. And so once the label came out, everybody was just like, okay, great, wonderful. We knew, there was no change. I mean, I ain't never had no girlfriend, so that was kind of common sense,
Yeah. Now, what do you think you have encountered, and I know you don't pay a lot of attention to it, but what do you think you've encountered more resistance for, being an African American, being a black man, or being a gay man?
That's a good question.
I guess I'm wondering what's more difficult for Americans and everybody. What's more difficult for them to accept, black people or gay people? I
would probably have to say it would probably be black people. Honestly, I think it would probably be my blackness that makes me stand out. Like, for instance, like I feel as though I can't necessarily speak up about like Black Lives Matter or stuff like that, because I think that is still a concept that people don't understand. I think we live in a state of pretending and wanting to believe that we are all created equal when that is not true. We weren't created equal from the very beginning, and that still lingers. It just doesn't disappear just because everybody says, oh, you have the same rights as everybody else, that is the case. I think homosexuality has started to become more accepting within, the world in general, especially in certain cities, like LA is very gay friendly. Do we still have homophobia? Yes, I think, but my blackness is one thing that I can't mask. You can assume that someone is not gay or if they are gay. But every time I walk into a room, my blackness is the first thing that is prevalent. That is what you see first. That's something I can't wipe off or mask away.
Mm-hmm. And how have you, or where did you learn, I'm trying to phrase this correctly, in the same way it seems like you did around being gay, how did you learn to have pride in your skin color as well? I tend to not fret about things that I can't change. Right.
And I think I always, like I said, find what makes you unique and let that stand out. I think my blackness and my gayness combined is what makes me magical. It's what makes me special. I think if I was not those two things, the food reaction videos wouldn't have worked. Because I'm black and had a specific connection to cornbread and how it is generally made, then I wouldn't have been able to have the commentary that I had on it. There was cultural significance. And so because of that, that is why I hold on to it, because I know that makes me different and that's what makes me special.
Yeah. And do you find that your audience is primarily of people from black and gay communities, or is it really intersectional in that respect?
I think it's very intersectional. And I think that's what's the best about my community. I talked about food being the one universal thing. I think everybody can relate to it. No matter what, if I'm making a comment that is specifically like only black people get, or there's a comment that only gay people get, or there's a comment that only white people get, I give every single community something that they can relate to. So I think it's very intersectional.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it doesn't get much higher than Ellen, Oprah, and Michelle Obama. But who's left that you would really like to connect with, to talk to?
I think everybody will probably already know this answer, and it's definitely Beyonce. And I would say Beyonce. Yeah, I would say Beyonce because Beyonce for me was a mentor, even though she didn't know it. Like, I remember being a kid, and I would always be obsessed with like the behind the scenes footage, because I just always loved watching Beyonce work. I think she has one of the most incredible work ethics on how she just go, let's make it happen. You know, I think she very much serves her fans and makes content for them, you know, and for us. And so I think that is what I aspire to have within my own career.
Well, so Ellen knows what to get you for your birthday now, right?
You know, I wish.
So what's next for you? What are you going to continue doing the food videos and your other projects on EllenTube and elsewhere, or is there anything new on the horizon?
I mean, that will always be a constant. You know, we do that. I think now that that's not really my main priority or my main focus. I think I do those just because now, you know, that's part of the job now. I think what I'm interested in is starting to do a little bit of community outreach, you know, working with other LGBT plus organizations, and definitely focusing on urban communities, because I feel like urban communities get left out of those conversations, you know, and so I definitely have interest in that. I think I have interest in exercising my acting roots and my musical theater roots and my singing roots, you know, and the stuff that I used to do. I think I found security in that content that I've been doing, that I know that I can just continue to do those. So finding new ways of exploring my passions and desires and finding new fulfillment within my access to what I can do in this new space of Hollywood.
Yeah. And I think I read it somewhere that you were working on, and I apologize if this is already out, but something with Seth Rogen?
Yes, so we did a movie that comes out next year. So yes, we did a movie. I believe the title is An American Pickle. We didn't have a title for a while, so I believe we have finally solidified a title. But yes, so that movie will be coming out, I believe, in the spring. So I'm very excited about that. Is
that your big screen debut, or have you made appearances in other things as well?
Oh, no, that will be my first time in a movie. Yeah, so we're hitting the theaters, and I'm very excited. I know I'm very excited about that people around the world will be able to see my face in theaters.
That's amazing. So tell me then, Kalen, where else can people see your face? Where can they find your social accounts and all the other stuff?
Well, I've made it very easy for everyone. You can find me on literally everything at the Kalen Allen.
Very easy. Consistent, too. I like that.
Yeah, well, I want consistency.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I wasn't sure entirely what I was going to get into, but I really liked it. And I think it's a number of different angles that we haven't really had on the show yet. So I want to thank you. I'm so grateful to you for coming on here, but also for the work that you're doing every single day. I think it is important. I think it is motivating, and I think it is actually changing people's lives.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
That's it. That's my conversation with Kalen Allen from Ellen. You can find him on Instagram, Twitter, and everywhere else, YouTube for sure, at the Kalen Allen, KalenAllen. Look up his recipe reaction videos for sure, but everything else that he's doing. I really enjoyed my conversation and the diversity of it with him, and how we were able to explore his experience from a personal level in making such drastic life changes, and how he's able to maintain not only his humor, but his well-being. So I'm so grateful to Kalen for coming on the show. If you enjoyed our conversation, head on over to Apple Podcasts or everywhere else, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever else you listen, and subscribe to the show. Scroll on down to the bottom, leave us a star rating, leave us some comments there about what you thought, any questions you like, and share on social media. You can tag me as well. I'm at Mark Henick, that's at MarkHenick, or you can go to markhenick.com and leave me some feedback there, or catch up on any of the past episodes that we've done as well. I want to thank everybody who makes the show possible, of course. Everyone here at Entertainment One, Kimberly and Adrian and everybody else. The team is always growing and changing. And my wonderful editor as well, Dave, for making all this possible. That's it for this week. We'll talk to you again next week on So-Called Normal.